this morning. So Rhonda's going to speak to us give us a short devotion, and then we'll dismiss for prayer on our own for about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll come back together and pray together. So, Rhonda, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, the topic for today is generosity. And my purpose today, and really my hope, is that this will be the beginning of an ongoing conversation about what generosity is and what it really looks like to be a generous giver. So, in preparing for this devotion, I started with 3 questions. The first question was, what exactly is generosity? Or what does it mean to be generous? The meaning of generosity basically boils down to this: freely giving good things to others. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 8, Jesus says to his disciples as he's sending them out, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. So generosity is characterized by being ready, willing, and eager to give, but always with the intent to improve the well-being of the person that you're giving to and expecting nothing in return. So my second question was, is there a difference between giving and being generous? I mean, I give all the time, right? I donate clothes and toys, shoes, whatever, to Goodwill or other local charities. I'm a giver, right? But the question is, am I being generous? Am I freely giving good things to others with the intent to improve their lives, basically? And, honestly, the answer is no. I'm giving stuff away because I want to get stuff out of my house, right? People give me stuff all the time. We have 4 kids. So I just want to get the clutter out, move it out. So, hey, let's give it a Goodwill and let them figure out what to do with it, right? And I don't know about any of you when you're giving stuff away to Goodwill or whatever, but, you're certainly not picking the best of the best stuff to give away. You're giving away stuff that you just want to move out of the way to get more stuff you're not going to use, right? So the truth is, also, I don't want to be labeled wasteful by throwing away stuff that somebody else can use. So, okay, give it away. Not to mention I get a tax deduction, right? So while giving and generosity are definitely related, the main difference is generosity requires giving, but giving does not require generosity. So this led me to my third question. What does a generous giver look like? So my journey to answer this question led me to 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 5 through 15, which paints a really beautiful picture of what a generous giver looks like. I'm not going to read it now. It's kind of long, so you can read it at your leisure. But according to this passage, a generous giver, they give because they want to and not because they have to. They trust God to supply their needs and more. They understand that giving generously brings glory and praise to God. They also understand that generosity opens the door for blessings in your life. And they also want to follow Christ's example of generosity, which is the ultimate example of being generous. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9 says, "You know the grace of our Lord Jesus, rich as he was, he made himself poor for your sake, in order to make you rich by means of his poverty." So let's go a little further. When we hear the word generosity, or when we think about being a generous giver, usually our minds instantly jump to money, right? And while yes, being generous, being a giver, it often does involve money, living a generous life involves so much more than money. We have so much more to offer this world than just financial resources. In 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 7, Paul writes, "You are rich in all you have, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in your eagerness to help, and your love for us. So generosity is being happy to give or share your time, your money, your talents, or your attention. It's freely giving aid to someone in need, giving encouragement, being emotionally available. It's sharing your experiences or whatever else you may have to give. We have to understand that being generous is not so much a matter of prosperity or of monetary wealth as it is a matter of the condition of our hearts. Generous people, they think beyond their money. They seek to invest their very lives into other people. So every single source that I used when I was preparing for this devotion, they all basically came to the same conclusions about generosity. Generosity is not selfish. Generosity is kind. Generosity is trusting. It's not greedy. Generosity is not fearful. So if you reference 1 Corinthians chapter 13, generosity is basically the biblical equivalent of love. So the next question I have to ask myself is this: am I a generous giver? Am I generous with my time? Am I generous with my talents? Am I generous with my emotions? Do I freely give praise or compliments? Am I eager to show compassion or appreciation to people? Am I generous with encouragement? Am I generous with prayer? Am I eager, willing, and ready to share my faith? Am I generous with my money? So my question to you is, are you a generous giver? Are you eager and willing to freely share whatever you might possess with others? If the answer is yes, great, good for you, but you're not done. The next step is to pray and ask God to open more windows, more doors of opportunity for you to be more generous. Ask Him to stretch you to the point of sacrificial generosity. The kind of sacrificial generosity that God demonstrated when He gave His only Son for us. The type of sacrificial generosity that Jesus demonstrated when He gave His very life for us. So if, like me, you find out that maybe you've got some work to do when it comes to being a generous giver, the next step is to pray and really begin to search your heart. Ask yourself, what is it that keeps me from being generous, from being a generous giver? What stops me from being generous with my time? What is it that keeps me from being a generous servant? What stops me from being generous with my money? Maybe it's past experiences. Maybe it's finances. Maybe it's hurt from a past relationship. Or if you're like me, maybe it's fear. So I encourage you to pray and ask God to open your heart and open your eyes to opportunities to be generous and to be generous on purpose.
Thank you. What a great word. Thank you. We're going to spend the next about 10 minutes. If you're watching online live, take about 10 or 15 minutes this morning and just follow the devotion. Ask God to search your heart. Ask God to reveal to you what is preventing you from being a generous giver. So we'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes here, and then we'll come back together for the last 5 minutes, and we'll close together in prayer. So pray together. Pray for the next 10 or 15 minutes.